Welcome to Networking Fundamentals. In this segment, we're really going to look at what do you do now that you're at the event. We've done our preparation, we've gotten our mind right, our attitude, our confidence right. We've set our plan in place, we know who we want to meet, we've got some good introductions in the way that we want to introduce ourselves. Now we're at the event, so what are some things that we need to consider? Well, first is our dress. So we want to dress professionally, and it's usually a good recommendation to dress at or above whatever level it is that of the event that you're attending. And so if I went to an event, it was a manufacturing fair, and I asked the organizers kind of what do people typically wear, and most people wear khakis and a polo. So when I went to that event, I didn't wear a tie because I didn't want to be 2 or 3 levels above what the typical dress was, because then I look kind of out of place. So want to make sure that the dress is professional, clothes are neat, things of that nature. Second thing, make sure you got plenty of business cards. Take 2 or 3 times as many as you think that you'll need, because you don't want to run out. Although it's not the end of the world if you want to run out, because one of the key things that you want to do is when you connect with someone, definitely get their business card, because then you are in control of follow-up. I never like to just give someone a business card and then hope they call me. I want to get their information. So if you don't have your own business cards or you run out, in all cases, make sure you get their business card so you can control the follow-up. Third thing is to have a name tag, and it's ideal to wear the name tag on your the right breast area. The reason for that is that typically when you're shaking hands, the line of sight goes in that direction. Most people, for some reason, put theirs on the left side, and it's sort of awkward, so the person's shaking hands and they got to look the other way. It's just easier, if you want to think about it as networking, feng shui, whatever, that's just a good recommendation. Have it on the right side so it's in line. You can get very affordable magnetic name tags that have Malone Solutions in your name. Check with me if you want more information about that. They're pretty inexpensive, and they work a whole lot better than the little sticky, hi, my name is, that they give you at most of those events. Also, it's a good idea to have good hygiene. Have breath mints, especially if you're drinking coffee and things like that. There's this, as all of us have had those experiences talking with someone that didn't, had really bad breath odor or body odor, and it's almost impossible to build a connection with someone if we have that, if we have those odors. So definitely have breath mints and things like that, just to kind of just so that you don't fall into that problem. There's also some just body language things to consider. So having a good handshake, not too strong, not too weak. I met someone a couple weeks ago and they squeezed my hand so hard that I almost went down to one knee. I couldn't believe how hard they squeezed my hand. So just want to have a nice firm handshake. Also maintain good eye contact. I don't want to stare at someone or like I'm not moving my eye contact. I try to match kind of their body language and eye contact, meaning periodically you'll just notice that someone looks away. So I just try to kind of match that a little bit, but mainly you want to pay attention to them. It's always upsetting when we're meeting someone for the first time, and as we're talking, they're looking around the room like they're trying to figure out who else they need to talk to, because obviously we're not important enough. So you want to make sure that you're right there with that person, and you be respectful in your eye contact. Have good open posture and be open and that smile. Oftentimes we kind of sometimes forget to smile. Also, what we want to do is have good questions prepared, and we want to ask good questions, because real networking, in terms of creating those opportunities for people, the best networkers ask good questions and they listen, and they repeat back what they've heard, and they let the person know that they're really hearing what they're saying. And trust me, you'll only have to ask a couple of questions and recap 1 or 2 things, and they'll think you're one of the best listeners that they've ever met, because most people are thinking about what they're going to say next, and they're in their head about what they want to talk about, because they're not as interested in the other person. But I will tell you, you will make good connections that will make the follow-up a whole lot easier, because they'll want to hear from you, because you're someone that asks good questions. So I want to give you a few questions that can be good ones to start with. Also recommend that when you do think of questions, come up with questions that are things that are deeper than, let's talk about the weather, or let's talk about the basketball game, or something like that. You want to come up with questions that position you as someone that's different than other people. I get asked all the time, how do we differentiate ourselves? And what I would say is differentiate yourselves by the things you do and say, in terms of the actions you take. It's not so much that I'm going to tell the person I'm interested. I'm going to demonstrate that I'm interested by actually asking questions and listening to what they're talking about. So one of the questions is, what are some of the challenges that you face in your job? What are some of the challenges that you see with regulation? You know, the Affordable Care Act is a great opportunity that's affecting just about every business, so it's a simple thing to say, hey, how are you dealing with the Affordable Care Act, right? I don't have to be an expert on the Affordable Care Act. I can just get that conversation going to see, is that a concern for you? Maybe they're not concerned about that. Maybe there's some other kind of challenge. Another simple question is, what do you hope to accomplish at this event? It's real simple. Everybody's there for some reason, you know, and it could be, I'm here for the speaker, you know, I'm here because I heard they have good bacon, you know, it could be, I'm here because I want to meet new people, and then I've got a dialogue going. Another good question is, how do you spend most of your time? That gives the person a chance to talk about a variety of things. It could be work-related, could be a hobby that they're interested in. Whatever they respond with is going to be something important to them. And then now you're in a dialogue. And my goal when I'm having these conversations is to get to a point where I've earned enough trust to be able to say, you know, it sounds like we've got some common ground. It sounds like, you know, I know for me, I'd like to be able to continue this conversation and kind of learn more about each other or this issue. Could we schedule time to maybe talk after this? And this is, you know, I'm evaluating when I'm talking to someone, do I want to follow up with them? But oftentimes this should be a natural question that comes out. I typically don't ask a question if I don't feel like there's been that trust established. But once that trust is established, and you'll kind of feel that, when I ask that question, most people say, sure, you know, yeah, give me a call, we'll schedule something. Depending upon the person, I might get my calendar out right then because that saves some time. Sometimes that can be perceived as a little too aggressive. To me, it's more of a time saver, but kind of just judge those situations. But this is the best way to set up good follow-up because now I'm getting permission from the person. Another question I get from people is, how do you move in and out of groups? How do you know who to talk to? So a few suggestions. One is, if you find groups that are odd-numbered people, like 3 people or 5 people in a group, 3 or 4 people, and the reason for that is there's almost always going to be at least one person that's not as engaged in that conversation. So you kind of make eye contact, so you kind of walk around the group until you make eye contact with someone. You don't want to look like a stalker, so, you know, or a vulture circling, but just sort of, you'll make eye contact with someone, and most people, if it's a networking event, will invite you into the conversation. They'll smile, or they'll give you some body language that it's okay to get in that conversation. If you're in a conversation and you want to move to another one, but you don't want to be rude about it, you can say things like, you know, who else is here that maybe you can introduce me to? Who else should I be talking to? Can you walk me over? And then now you can get into another conversation. I've also said, you know, I've got a friend that I promised I would talk to. They just got here, so if you'll excuse me, I need to chat with them before we get started. It was great talking with you. And then I move on to the next person. Another way to do that is to say, you know, I know someone else here based on our conversation that I think you should know. Let me go introduce you. And then you can take them and actually introduce them to someone. So those are a few ways to sort of navigate in the room. And at most of these networking events, people know they're going to be approached. So most people are fairly open. You'll run across your occasional individual that doesn't want to talk to anybody, and they're at a networking event. But mostly, people are going to be open to having a conversation. Now that we've attended the event, then we need to do some follow-up. And we've gotten permission because we've said, could we have a conversation to go deeper into this? So they've given you permission. I always encourage people to get on that right away. I mean, sometimes I'll even leave the networking event and send the email out right then just to kind of be on top of that, or give them a phone call. Also, as I start participating in different groups, I will evaluate every 90 days how effective is this group. If I'm spending a lot of time in this group, am I really getting a good return for it, or do I need to go somewhere else? I have a lot of success just going as a guest or a visitor at different association groups rather than being a member and getting deeply involved. I tend to only get really involved in 1 or 2 organizations because I just don't have time to do more than that. You can also create your own networking opportunities. A great book is called Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi, and it has a lot of great insights into how to create networking events around the areas that you're interested in to attract the people you want to meet. I had a colleague of mine who invites his business colleagues to different social events that he goes to because he's already going to be there anyway. I've done this with clients before. I like to go hiking, and I got a couple clients that they like to go hiking, and so I'll invite them to go hiking, and it's something I'm already planning to go. So now again, that's not a formal structured networking event, but I'm definitely building those relationships and creating opportunities that way. A way to save time is if you can schedule lunches with 2 or 3 other people. So as you meet people that you think maybe should know each other, you could organize a lunch or get coffee together or invite them to your office and get 2 or 3 people together to just to sort of a meet and greet and get to know each other. And oftentimes it's that creating that connection, opportunities, and sharing those ideas that don't necessarily relate directly to selling, staffing, or recruiting that lead to the best results. People don't want to be sold all the time. There's always an appropriate time to move that sales conversation forward, but much of the time when we're networking, we're just trying to build connection, build some trust, and get permission to be able to move things forward or get other introductions. So those are a few steps that you can take in terms of attending the event, body language, doing the follow-up. So I would encourage you to put down on paper your own networking plan and what you want to say and how you want to follow up with people. Share your experiences, questions, contact me, post information here, and we would love to hear what your success stories are and how things are working for you as you create some really tremendous results for you and your office with these networking fundamentals.